Many game franchises in the past have seriously set the tone with their first game entries. Sometimes a singular game can be so damn good that it actually places a significant amount of pressure on that development studio to put out their sequel. Some developers even decide against any follow-up games just because the formula from the first one was just so good and they don't want to tarnish the reputation of that game or franchise. Granted, this was mostly the games back in the day, with games like Bully which scored an extremely high score on Metacritic, but to this day never got a sequel or a follow-up game. However, there are some games that have built such large communities and created such large pools of revenue that it's almost impossible for them to not develop any follow-up games. The games like the original Halo trilogy, the original Modern Warfare trilogy, and the original Gears of War trilogy. Games that are so fan-loved and that have built a massive communities over the years, and stories that are just so damn good that you want to play them every time a new game comes out. No matter how good or how bad they are, it's just because the reputation those games have built, the name attracts people. But there's one game that comes to mind when talking about sequels that I've grown up to absolutely love and I've put unhealthy amounts of hours into. One game that really hits home and hits home hard with me personally, and ones that will forever remain a masterpiece in my eyes. That is Gears of War 2. Gears of War 2 for me personally was developed to perfection by Epic. It took everything that Gears of War 1 did so well, but innovated the gameplay, improved the gunplay, and the way the story was told, expanded the sandbox in ways that just had me blown away even on my playthrough for this review. There aren't many games out there that deserve to be called or titled a masterpiece, and sometimes this term does get thrown around a lot, but for me, Gears of War doesn't just deserve this reward, it earns it like a knighthood. So today we're going to revisit this fantastic game, talk about its action-packed yet really emotional story, the unhealthy number of hours that myself, my friends, and probably you guys put into this game, like the Horde mode, the campaign itself, and ultimately why it earns its tag as a masterpiece. For me, when playing through Gears of War 2 back in 2008 and even the last few weeks, it grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and told me to sit the fuck down and listen. Not many games have the ability to do that in modern day. A lot of games, especially in this day and age, are created with monetization at the forefront, which has resulted in many subpar games as of recent time that impacts the overall story narrative because of that focus on monetary gains. But when developing a sequel for the fan-loved Gears of War, it was all about taking what the first Gears game had and expanding on all the characters you're fighting with and creating that emotional connection with you and your squad. At the end of Gears of War 1, we defeated the Locust in their war against humanity. However, with the Queen still being alive, we could already tell that this was not going to be the end of this story. Gears 2 begins its story with a cutscene summarising the first game, but also giving us a situational update as to where we are right now. We destroy all of the tunnels from the Locust traversing through up to the surface of Sarah. However, in the time between 1 and 2, the Locust have regrouped, became stronger, and ultimately fought back. The game starts by showing us that the COG are not on top of this war, with a cutscene of soldiers being stretched into the hospital that they're commandeering at the time. And of course, this would be the perfect time to take on a trainee.
Sergeant Phoenix! Are you Sergeant Phoenix? Delta Squad? I'm your new trainee.
And green as grass by the looks of it.
Oh my god, I love the Carmine brothers in this game. Throughout the story though, we meet plenty of new awesome faces, the first person being about 2 minutes into the campaign's gameplay, Ty. Ty is an absolute badass, a South African warrior with tattoos covering his face and body, a character that the game tries to put across to you as unbreakable, someone that would rather die than talk. But I want you guys to remember this and keep this particular part of the review in mind when going into the later parts of it. It's really interesting the way the characters are portrayed and what the developers are trying to do to us. Gears of War 2's main story is to defeat the Locust threat covering Jacinto, but we do start to learn as we progress through the story that this isn't our only objective throughout. In Gears 2, Dom begins to open up more, speaking around how he hasn't seen or heard from his wife Maria in a really long time, and he's becoming extremely worried about her situation. Throughout the story, it's not just the COG's mission to defeat the Locust that we're worried about and that we want to be successful in. but also personal missions for our friend, our brother, that we've grown to really care for from the first game going into the second. Gears of War 2 isn't just a masterpiece in my eyes because of its gameplay innovations from the first game, but because the storytelling in this game was dialed up to 100. I think this game resonates so well with me personally just because of the added elements of emotional storytelling. It wasn't just about stopping the Locust for me in this game, or wanting to kill this new antagonist and ultimately defeat the Queen of the Hive, but it was about finding Maria for Dom, because Dom is ultimately a character that I personally fucking love from the first game going into this game. And the amazing thing about it, and the reason why this game probably resonates with me so well, is because Epic don't force this narrative on you. It is something on the side that, because you care about Dom and you want Dom to be reunited, and potentially some can relate with this situation, that's where it really strikes home and you care about this personal mission that Dom has. The player is made to feel extremely involved in the story, and as a result of that, Dom, Marcus, Cole and Baird all feel like brothers to you. This is why you want to ultimately defeat the Locust, but also find Dom's wife. Throughout the campaign in Gears of War 2, we're delivered with some really shocking and emotional moments that you just wouldn't think the developers would implement on the back of playing through the first game. Key characters fighting against bosses when there's nothing that we can do about it in early parts of the game. On the back of the first game, we'd probably expect them to come out of these battles on top, like they're some form of super soldier that we were in the first game. However, Gears of War 2 grounds the players, and it reminds them that they are on the back foot of this war, and everyone is human, and no one is immortal. Like when we make our way through the underground city and board a beast barge after learning that the Locusts are capturing humans and torturing them aboard these beast barges and keeping them hostage. But we find someone extremely unexpected aboard these beast barges, one of them being Ty, this South African warrior, an absolute badass who we thought would probably come out on top of that battle we had earlier with the new antagonist, was captured, tortured, and essentially broken by the Locusts and their leaders.
Ty, is that you? Marcus, we got more Locust on the way! Ty, let's go! Cole, Baird, cover that door! Carmine, Dom, guard the rear! Ty! No! I told you they're breaking people! I can hear them screaming from the docks!
I can't believe they did that to Ty. He survives everything, doesn't he?
Covered in deep scratches across his entire body, with his armor being literally ripped away from him. Marcus and the player play it off and almost presume that Ty will recover and fight back, with him being extremely strong and his character telling us that. But that isn't the case at all in this situation. Ty takes the gun that Marcus throws at him and shoots himself. The Locust's torture was so bad that it led him to do that. And it just shows that humanity are not on the front foot of this war. The Locusts are overpowering us, and that generally war is a horrible place, even for the toughest of people. It's an extremely grounding moment that happens very early on and sets the tone throughout the campaign. But this wasn't the only moment that really grounds the player throughout, and the developers do a really good job of bringing you back to grounds when you're maybe going through a section that you're completely like a super soldier taking out all of these locusts and swarms that are coming in. It then gets you to a point where you think, damn, this is the reality of war. Dom was in search of his wife throughout the entirety of the campaign and heard from a civilian that he's seen her before. This conversation builds hope with Dom and the player that we might reunite Dom with his wife. Seeing the flashbacks Dom has around his wife, it really shows that her safety is his top priority and that he cares so much for her. We get to a stage where we find a series of Locust terminals, where we search for Maria's name and it displays a particular symbol. We follow a trail of terminals and eventually come across the vial which Maria is located in. And again, Epic do an absolutely exceptional job of making the player believe that we are the super soldier from the first game and that everything in war in this scenario turns out the way that we want it to at first glance. We are the cog, we are super soldiers, and everything we do goes right? But that just isn't how war works, especially the reality of it. And Epic again ground the player and bring us back to realization here.
Jack, open it up. I can't believe it, Marcus. We finally found her. Maria. Maria.
Dom.
No, no, no. No, baby. No, 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 no. What did they do to you? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Maria. I tried to find you. God, I did. Please, no. Maria. God damn it, it's me, Dominic. It's Dominic. Marcus, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, man.
No. It's okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Maria. I love you so much.
I'm sorry about Maria, but she's in a better place now. You did what you had to do. I found a way to sneak into Nexus, but if you want to go in guns blazing, I don't blame you.
I want to kill them all.
Dom initially sees what he ultimately wanted to see, his wife completely unharmed just as she looked in his earlier visions. But Marcus's tone suddenly drops. The player starts to wonder what's happening here. Dom then snaps out of it and back into reality and sees exactly what happened to Maria. This is such a hard cutscene to watch, and I can't imagine the trauma and the pain that he must be feeling during this time. From caring for Dom and ultimately his spouse throughout, to see what happened to her in this section. It's really heart-wrenching for the player and for the characters in game. This is what makes Gears of War 2 such a step up from the first game, because you would never expect something like this to happen in that game. but it also does a great job of putting humour into the story alongside these sort of gut-wrenching moments, which does add a good balance to it, with the players making the best of a bad situation. Like where Dom mugs off Halo's Cortana in a joke towards the start of the game.
I think it's safe to say that's not a natural K formation.
I thought it was just such a good touch, and as a massive Halo fan, I really appreciated that little bit of humour there. Or when Cole decides to give some back to the Locust Queen when infiltrating the palace towards the end of the game.
The world is ripe for their arms.
Delta Squad is in your house, bitch! You hear that shit? Your bum ass bitches are going down, like way down, dead down, so down you ain't gonna know which way is up. Your ass is gonna be quiet till your skink ass queen. Oh, mommy, you let the bad man hurt us. Fuck you! We gonna whoop your mama's ass! Whoa!
There we go. One muscled queen. Not you, her. You were great. I loved your speech there, especially with the bitch-ass stuff. Very good, very enlightening.
Literally the best cutscene ever. Epic have done exactly what a sequel is meant to be here, taking what Gears of War 1 did so well and innovating the existing formula, improving the gameplay and expanding the sandbox, whilst also adding different elements to the story that we wouldn't necessarily expect, but really make you resonate and care with the characters and the story. There is nothing worse in a story than a developing studio forcing a set of characters on you, like what happened in Call of Duty Vanguard. The 4 characters were built to try to get the player to like them and to try for them to be memorable. But you're not going to accomplish that with forcing that on the player. So we fight our way through the Locust breeding ground to find out that they're using a giant worm to try and sink Jacinto. We destroy the worm from the inside, which is such a cool set of missions, and figure out without the worm that the Locusts are trying to flood Jacinto, ultimately sinking the city and destroying a different species of locust that are at war with the locust, which was quite difficult to wrap my head around at the start, but it's really interesting to see that there's not just one faction fighting another, there's actually a different one that could be causing havoc between them as well. This different faction are the Lambent Locusts. These are locusts that have spent a lot of time or too much time in the emulsion underground, which has caused them to become volatile and essentially have them explode as well. In the end, we actually decide to plan to sink Jacinto ourselves, because in doing this, we'll completely destroy all locust threat below ground, including the Lambent and the normal. We were successfully doing this towards the end of the game, putting a stop to the locust threat for now. That was an extremely quick analogy as to what happened during the campaign, but the storytelling isn't the main reason as to why this game is a masterpiece for me. Again, I really recommend going to play this game, play through the story, not just for the story itself, but for those additional moments. I would recommend playing the first game, of course, first, so we get the tone of that game, or check my review out, be on screen now, or just play this game and experience those moments. It's really, really worth it. Throughout the campaign, the innovations are just so apparent from the gameplay aspect of things. Gears of War 2 is an extremely linear game, right? It's very much like the first one. But what I do love about this game is that it changes up the gameplay in a way that doesn't feel monotonous, or just follow this path in this direction, or just kill this horde of enemies that are showing up out of nowhere. It makes the player feel uncomfortable when entering certain parts, even though you know it's very linear. For example, at the very start of the game, there's a massively dark tunnel that you can enter through, with literally only a flashlight to show you what's in front of you, not knowing what could be the end of the tunnel either. The impactful sound design when you can hear the Brumok's footsteps stomp their way through that very same tunnel that you'd only just shortly came out of. I do just want to take a moment in this section of the video and just highlight how good the music is in this game as well. Soundtracks and combat music in this game is what makes Gears of War the game it is today. Gears of War 1's music was memorable and recognisable, but Gears of War 2 music was fucking iconic. Steve Jablonsky did an absolutely fantastic job in recreating and remastering the music from the first game. They did what Halo did so well, and what Marty did so well, is take the music from Halo Combat Evolved and rework it to remaster it in a way that it doesn't change the foundations of that song, but it changes it in a way that differentiates it from the first game going into the second game. So the game feels like it is a part of a bigger franchise, or trilogy in that case. It's a really, really well done piece of music. Here's an example of what they did in Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2, and then we're going to compare that to Gears of War 2 and how that's changed as well.
Control, can you read me? Anya, are you there?
How much better does that sound, and how good is that soundtrack? For me, Gears of War 2's soundtrack is one of my favourites in gaming soundtrack history, with literally using it in almost all of my videos, completely non-Gears related. I just love it so much. But alongside this, Gears of War 2 presents the player with some extremely beautiful set pieces. The underground palace where the Locust Queen is held up, to the emulsion-filled lakes spanning miles across the underground city. Not to mention, fighting inside a goddamn worm has to be one of the coolest parts of this game. Soaring through the tissue walls with your Lancer and escaping a huge ball of debris that's regurgitating by the worm. Soar through the valves of the heart and filling the worm with all of its blood from the inside. It's an awesome idea from the developers. However, there is one part of the campaign that made me actually picture myself in that situation and how shit scared I actually would be. We're on a boat and we're going through the emulsion-filled lakes, and we keep going through this tunnel when eventually it's apparent that there's a giant locust fish below us somewhere in this water. And then all of a sudden comes out of nowhere after we go down this waterfall. And, Marcus, how do we fight this, you say?
Let the worm from the inside! Get inside its mouth!
I'm sorry, what? This was just so epic, and it was such a fun boss fight, and I really have to give credit to Epic in this situation. They balance emotion with the epic scenes so well in this game, and it was such a fun boss fight. But this isn't the only set of epic missions in Gears 2. Epic did what Bungie did back in Halo 2. Halo Combat Evolved was about you, Cortana, and learning about the lore of the ring. Halo 2 was balls to the wall and let you control the Covenant, be the Arbiter, and learn more about them. Gears 2 doesn't let us control the Locust in campaign, of course, but it does something even better in my eyes. Throughout the campaign, we find ourselves piloting Brewmarks, Reavers, which we can fly and drive ourselves. Are you kidding me? From escaping a huge Hydra towards the end, to defeating the antagonist Scourge in an awesome boss battle inside the palace. There are so many innovating gameplay changes to make the linear level design just feel more fun, and they absolutely nail it. Did you really think we could talk about this masterpiece of a game without mentioning one of the biggest and memorable reasons for it being a masterpiece? Let's move on to multiplayer. Gears of War 2's multiplayer was a set of modes I put a ridiculously unhealthy amount of hours into as a kid, especially that PvE Horde mode. Playing through Avalanche whilst the massive avalanche just fell onto the map, changing the way that it looked and it played, then even revisiting some of the campaign levels and fending off the Horde playing through them. It was just really fun and interesting for me back in the day. With the game offering 11 maps at launch, which nowadays is almost unheard of for a game. And the thing is that they weren't bad maps, these were all really well put together maps. A lot of them were taken directly from the campaign and just segregated into smaller sections, which give you more of a 3-lane basis on those maps, and they were just so fun to play through, and they've given me some of my most memorable moments in gaming. The Horde mode, however, was very basic in Gears of War 2, where you would just hold down an area with some friends and fend off the incoming enemies, with them getting harder and harder as the game progresses, and even allowing you to choose your own difficulty before you enter that match. You could also earn XP and even be able to brag at the end of a round how many kills you got compared to your teammates, turning it into a bit of a competition, which I remember fondly was the case for me and my friends. Gears of War 2 didn't just launch with 11 maps, which were all really good to be fair. It also launched with a large amount of social and ranked game modes for the multiplayer, which gave everyone so much variety to go and play and to give a go. These modes were Warzone, which was more of a team deathmatch based mode, Submission, which was like Capture the Stranded, Wingman, which was 2-on-2 on 2-on-2 on 2, so essentially just 2v2. Execution was team deathmatch with executions, which allows you to go down and then the enemy can obviously execute you when you're down and things like that. Guardian, protect the leader. Annex was like King of the Hills, so it's plural, so there were more than one hills across the map, and there was just the standard King of the Hill, which was so popular from back in the day, from the likes of Halo being so big. With me never being the best at Gears of War PvP, to be completely transparent with everyone, I still really enjoyed how the maps played out when I played on the ranked modes or the social modes or even the custom games with friends, and learning how to try and master this really unique style or gameplay style for Gears of War. Bro, the ability to play as the Locust online, the Locust obviously throughout the campaign are the bad guys, but having the ability to be able to play as them against the COG was so unexpected when I first jumped on and played it. I was like, damn, I can play as these different characters from the Locust, and it was just so good, and a really memorable touch from my childhood, definitely, playing this game. Just a little minor one, but I really enjoyed it. All the memories of being able to jump in and pick your favourite character as well from the campaign and play as them in these Horde or ranked modes was just such a cool touch, and I loved it. As if you'd soloed the game like I have, you'd probably only have played as Marcus and didn't get to experience the likes of Cole, Baird, or even Dom. But it isn't just those 4 characters you can play as. You can actually play as other characters that you've met throughout the game, which was a really good touch from Epic back in the day. Because for me, Ty was one of my favourite characters, such a badass character. Unfortunately, what happened to him in the campaign was a bit of an unfortunate event, but I've always wanted to play as him on multiplayer on Horde, and I could do that because the developers allowed us to do that. With options for you to play as Marcus, Cole, Baird, Dom, the Carmine brothers, Anthony and Benjamin, Ty, Dizzy, the General, and even Ram and Min Young Kim, if you'd unlock specific achievements from Gears of War 1. So it gives you an incentive to go back and play that game to unlock these characters in the new game, which was really cool. A cool little touch, here are my actual leaderboards from back in the day. Granted, it's probably not very high as some of the people that are watching this video, but at the same time, I was also playing the likes of Gears 3, COD, FIFA, Halo, etc. And I think I did pretty well to balance it out and to play it. Gears 3 Horde mode innovated so much, so I did overall prefer that mode when it did eventually come out. But when Gears of War 2 was the sole game, it was just constant hours and hours and hours into that Horde mode, and it was so much fun. Following on from this as well, Gears of War 2's sandbox improved drastically over Gears of War 1. I mean, comparing it to Gears Sandbox, it's night and day different, and it's so much better. With it being relatively the same as the first game, but with the addition of the likes of the Flamethrower, the Gorgon submachine gun, Mortar, the Boom Shield, it opened the door for some great gameplay opportunities, multiplayer-wise and on the campaign. Not one weapon feels overly the same, powerful or underpowered, meaning you can use every weapon type and have fun using it as well. So if you need to, you can use the pistols and it will do a good amount of damage when trying to kill these enemies, whether it's the higher tier enemies or the lower tier ones. Look, overall, there isn't a huge amount that I can add to what made this game's multiplayer so iconic and added to the masterpiece that is Gears 2. But for me, it was just about having friends there to play with and to experience this game with, which is where the majority of my memories of this game come from. Trying to get to the highest round possible in Horde, or playing social and ranked matches with friends. Even dabbling in some MLG GB matches every so often, which was so much fun for me. But, of course, 10-year-old me got slapped up every single time. Gears 2 is a masterpiece for its story, but also its ability to co-op with friends on the campaign, PvE and PvP with friends, and share that really gory moments that lance a chainsaw through the middle of an enemy, and just have those memorable moments with friends. And, I don't know, the 2008 to 2011 era was just completely different to gaming now, and if you didn't experience it back then, you probably won't understand why this game was so good. And this goes for a lot of other games back in the day as well. But there was just something about that year, those years in particular, that was like the pinnacle of gaming. And to have games like Gears of War, Halo Reach, Halo 3, even Gears 1 come out around that time, it was honestly some of the best years of gaming that I've ever had. And yeah, this game will always be at the very top for me as an absolute fucking masterpiece. But that's Gears of War 2 in a very, very short summary to bring to you guys. I think this game is one of the best games ever made. I think Epic did an absolutely outstanding job of creating this game, especially on the back of the first game. Expectations were extremely high for Gears of War 2, and if Epic didn't deliver, this could have been the end of the franchise. But as we know so far, there's been 5 games of Gears of War. All of them have been very, very good, and the 6th one is on its way very soon as well, which I'm extremely excited to play, dive into the lore, and potentially bring some videos to you guys. I'm really looking forward to that. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down below, everyone. I'd love to know how many of you guys experienced Gears of War back in the day like I did, Gears of War 2 that is, and what memories you guys have on it. I think I'm going to do a separate video on the Horde mode, on multiplayer, because I put stupid hours into that, and a lot of my memories have come from Horde mode and Versus mode, and playing multiplayer with friends, and buying the barricades, and trying to fend off all of these locusts coming to try and kill us, and things like that. It's like, so many of my memories are on that game, and I feel like I need to do a dedicated video for multiplayer, because this one will just be way too long if I did add multiplayer into this. But please let me know your thoughts and opinions down below, everyone. I really enjoyed doing this video. It's a bit of a throwback, but Call of Duty campaign comes out on the 20th of October. I'll be absolutely caning that game for campaign and also multiplayer, so if you guys are going to be interested in that, make sure you do hit that subscribe button, leave a like on today's video as well, so I know you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you all in the next video.